All eyes will be on the Australian share market this morning after another volatile day on Wall Street. The US stock market has tumbled, recording its biggest daily drop in nearly 2 years, with the Dow closing 2.6% down as fears grow of an economic slowdown. More than $100 billion was wiped from the Australian market yesterday, and that's the biggest drop since the pandemic lockdown era.
All this comes as the Reserve Bank meets today to deliberate over just what to do about interest rates. Let's go straight to reporter Stephanie Ferrier in Melbourne. Steph, good morning. So some pretty huge movements on markets overnight. Bring us up to speed.
Good morning, Michael. Yes, we've seen those real concerns about a potential global recession coming into effect. We've seen those stocks really tumble. As you've mentioned, the Wall Street actually recording its biggest fall in almost 2 years. And we saw some of those tech stocks really tumble. For example, Nasdaq down 3.4%, as well as the S&P down 3%. And of course, the Dow down 2.6% as well. But of course, this is all in relation to some real concerns about unemployment levels over in the US. Those jobs figures came out on Friday, and that really triggered a technical term for a recession there. And so it's expected that the Fed is probably going to cut interest rates there by about 0.5% in the next month, and potentially 10 interest rate cuts by the end of next year as well to stave off these economic woes. We also saw the Nikkei over in Japan also tumble more than 12% in a single day. That's the worst fall since 1987. Seoul's Kospi also down 9%. Also Europe's stocks taking a tumble as well. And of course we saw that flow-on effect in the ASX as well, down 3.7% at the moment. The futures are also looking lower too. So we're expecting to see some of that difficulty also play out on our Australian share market too.
Yes, another dismal day ahead based on those movements overnight. So a big day for many borrowers, Steph, around the country today, obviously.
Yes, the big concern, of course, has been interest rates and just that cost of living that everybody is really feeling the pinch here. And the big decision will be at 2:30 this afternoon. That's when the RBA board will come out to say whether or not it is going to keep those interest rates on hold or lift them. However, we've seen that the ASX market indicator is now saying that there is an 80% chance that interest rates will remain on hold. So we will keep that official cash rate of 4.35%. That's, of course, because we saw those really good inflation figures come out in the June quarter, just a 1% rise for the quarter and 3.8% inflation for the year to June. Now, that is in line with expectations and, of course, is what the Reserve Bank is tracking towards their target band of between 2 to 3% inflation. So that is at least some good news for people out there with mortgages, and of course also that flow-on effect to renters, with landlords potentially putting their prices up as well in terms of high interest rates. We spoke to some of the commuters here at Melbourne Southern Cross Station about the fact that this global turmoil on the share markets actually could also help accelerate some of those interest rate cuts sooner rather than later towards the end of the year, and they are really breathing a sigh of relief. This is what they had to say.
I'm no different to most households. I think we've been impacted by the steep increase in interest rates over the past 2 years. That by far has been the biggest hit to the household budget, in addition to inflation, obviously, right? So I think that's welcome news.
It would probably mean that some people could breathe a little bit and not stress about how they were going to find a few extra dollars to pay whatever loan they've got.
Keep putting the interest rate up to bring the inflation down. It just hasn't helped anything. So it's more struggle for us, for everyone.
Yes, and it is a matter of whether or not the banks would end up passing on any cuts at the moment. But as I mentioned, the predictions are that there's going to be a hawkish hold on interest rates today, and analysts are saying that's because obviously the Reserve Bank Board doesn't want to stoke any more inflation at the moment, with big talk about potential cuts coming up.
OK, Steph, thank you.
Well, let's get some happier news because there's been another gold for Australia in Paris, this time for Noémie Fox. Yes, Jess Fox's sister, claiming her gold in the women's kayak cross final, adding to an incredible family legacy and also the medal tally at Paris. Let's go straight to Tom Maddox, who's there in Paris. Tom, the fabulous Fox family striking again. Talk us through it.
Oh, Lisa, this is a special Olympic moment. Noémie Fox now stands on the Olympic podium all by herself and steps out of the shadows of her champion sister, Jess Fox. It's a wonderful story of mental strength and, of course, physical strength from someone who has long been compared to other members of her famous family. Her dad, her mum both went to the Olympics, and of course her sister is now a three-time gold medalist. But somehow Noémie found her own way in this sport of paddling and has now reached the pinnacle of her sport. And I was lucky enough, Lisa, to be there at the Versailles Nautical Stadium this afternoon when Noémie won through her quarters and semi-finals to make it to the final, and it was a blistering sun. The stands were packed with fans, lots of French fans, lots of Australian fans, and they saw Noémie start well in the final. She found herself in second place, but she really stayed calm amid the chaos that is this kayak cross event when four paddlers go down the whitewater. She stayed calm and managed to edge herself into first place and held the lead. She finished the race and couldn't believe what she'd just achieved. Put her hands on her face. And it was a wonderful moment then when her sister and her mum, Miriam, jumped into the water fully clothed and embraced Noémie and recognised what she had just achieved. An ecstatic Noémie spoke to the media a short time ago.
It's definitely my own. You know, I think a lot of people were asking what would happen if you were up against Jess, and at the end of the day, you know, it's an individual sport, and we both know that. Qualifying was a moment where I realised, oh, actually, you know, you qualified on your own merit and you're capable of, you know, doing great things as well. Having that Olympic window really changed everything for me. We just gave it everything. That journey was so special, was so big, and you know, just to qualify was huge. And then it kind of just unlocked, wow, anything's possible when you dream big, you love what you do, and you work really hard.
So you have to remember, Lisa, that Noémie was the only member of her family that wasn't an Olympian. Her mum and her coach Miriam won bronze for France in Atlanta, and her dad Richard competed for Great Britain. He came fourth. And of course, Jess is now a three-time gold medalist. So Noémie's journey to get to gold has been one of perseverance and really one finding her own way. Initially, she just got into paddling socially, but then really caught the bug, and her competitive nature sparked then. And there was this opening when the kayak cross was announced as a new discipline at the Paris Olympics, and she's really dedicated herself and her training in the last year solely for that event. And of course, she managed to qualify in June. That was a massive achievement in itself. And now she stands on the podium as an Olympic gold medalist.
You know what I just realized is Noémie is the first, she's writing history. She's the first woman to win this kayak cross event. So it's amazing. You know, we always think, oh yeah, Jess this, Jess that. But at the end, Noémie did write her own story and the history in our sport.
Yeah, an incredible story for the whole family. Tom, we could talk about them for ages, but what else has been going on in Paris?
Good news for Australian sailing, Lisa. Of course, a couple of days ago, 20-year-old Sydney sider Gray Morris won silver in the windsurfing, a historic achievement. And now Australia is guaranteed at least a silver, if not gold, in the men's dinghy class tomorrow when the final gets underway in Marseille, south of France. Matt Wern is guaranteed a medal, so he's going to win at least a silver or a gold. He won gold in Tokyo in that same event 3 years ago. So if he wins gold tomorrow, Lisa, he'll become the first person to go back-to-back in that event. And there's been some Athletics today, a few Australians in action in the men's pole vault final. Curtis Marshall competed. Unfortunately, he hasn't quite reached the podium. He's finished in 6th place, but his West Australian training partner, Nina Kennedy, is through to the final tomorrow of the women's pole vault, and she's a real chance. And then finally, Tori Lewis, Australia's fastest woman over the 100 metres. She competed in the semi-final of the 200-metre dash today, finishing in 7th place. But a wonderful effort from Tori to reach the semi-final of that blue ribbon event. She's just 19 and she's been earmarked as a real star of the future of Australian athletics. Lisa.
We'll be saying her name for a long time to come, I hope. Thank you, Tom.
So after all that action overnight, Australia climbing to 3rd on the medal tally with 13 golds, 11 silvers and 8 bronze. China is leading, with the United States holding 2nd spot. Host nation France dropping to 4th. Great Britain rounding out, taking 5th spot.
Back home here, and the High Court will today hear a challenge to laws imposing curfews and ankle bracelets that were introduced after around 150 asylum seekers were released from immigration detention. That follows a ruling by the court last year. Lawyers for a stateless refugee will argue the laws amount to punishment which only courts can impose.
Queensland's Premier is promising to open 12 state-owned petrol stations in the hope of lowering prices if he's re-elected. Premier Stephen Miles says he's also planning a daily increase limit of 5 cents a day across all stations.
Staying in Queensland, investigation is underway after police shot a man west of Brisbane last night, the second police shooting in the state in as many days. Police were called to conduct a welfare check in North Toowoomba, where authorities say the man approached officers with a knife before they shot him twice. The man was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries.
The Liberal Party's Philip Ruddock has been rolled as Hornsby Mayor in Sydney's north after a bitter party preselection contest. The former Howard government minister is blaming his stance on advocating for what he calls appropriate development in the local area, which he says saw him ousted.